Tisztelt Hölgyeim és Uraim, kedves vendégeink, konzervatív barátaink! Sok szeretettel köszöntök mindenkit Budapesten, ahol idén immáron másodszorra kerül megrendezése a CPACHungary Európa első CPACHje. Külön köszönet itt Szántó Miklósnak, a csapatának és az Alapjogokért Központnak. Kedves vendégeink, külföldi barátaink, egy olyan helyen járnak ma, ahol a magyar emberek 1100 éve védik Európa határait, és azt kérlelhetetlenül. Személyesen nagyon fontosnak tartom, hogy a konzervatív erők képviselői a világ minden tájáról most összegyűltek itt, hogy többek között az illegális migrációról, a határvédelemről közösen beszéljünk ma. Magyarországon 2015 óta konzekvensen képviseljük az ezzel kapcsolatos álláspontunkat. Ennek a középpontjában az áll, hogy meg kell védjük hazánk, az országunk és Európa határait. Ezen felül pedig az illegális migráció visszaszorításához elsősorban a származási és tranzit országokban kell lépéseket tegyünk. 2015 óta a magyar kormány megközelítőleg 2 milliárd eurót fordított a déli határ védelmére. Nem csak a magyarokat megvédve ezzel, hanem Európát és az európai polgárokat. Mit válaszoltak erre az Európai Unió intézményei? Megtámadtak minket, politikai támadásoknak voltunk kitéve. Támadták a magyar kormányzatot. A határvédelem költségeinek alig 2%-át finanszírozta Brüsszel és az Európai Unió intézményei. Pedig a határvédelmi erőfeszítés a legnagyobb európai siker a migráció kérdésében. Kézzelfogható. Ugyanúgy, mint Donald Trump Amerikájában, mi megépítettük azt a falat, amit ígértünk. A mi célkitűzéseink tehát szemben állnak azzal a felfogással, amit Brüsszelben látunk. Különbséget teszünk a bevándorlás és az illegális migráció között. Betartjuk a nemzetközi szerződéseinket, és minden nemzetállam polgárainak szuverén döntéseként tekintünk arra, hogy hogyan kezelik a gazdasági migrációt. A magyar emberek erről határozott véleményt alkottak. Nem is egyszer, többször. Magyarország nem szeretne bevándorló országgá válni. Mindeközben a bevándorlásnak van egy másik dimenziója is. A háború elől az első biztonságos országba menekülő emberek százezreinek megsegítése. Mi ezt tettük a háború elől menekülő ukrán emberek esetében, és Magyarország történetének legnagyobb humanitárius akcióját hajtottuk végre, amelynek keretében rendkívüli erőfeszítéseket tettünk az ukrán menekültek megsegítésében. Mindez keresztényi kötelezettségünk is. A következő percekben olyan igazi konzervatívokkal van szerencsém beszélgetni, akik évek óta hasonlóan gondolkodnak a határvédelemről, és nem politikai széljáráshoz vagy a kampányidőszakok kezdetéhez igazítják az álláspontjukat. Öröm számomra ma itt köszönteni Hans-Georg Maassen jogászt, politikust, a Német Szövetségi Alkotmányvédelmi Hivatal korábbi elnökét. Megtisztelte a CPACHungaryt jelenlétével Chris Ferrell barátunk, a neves jobboldali non-profit szervezet, a Judicial Watch vizsgálati igazgatója és elnökségi tagja. Megosztja velünk gondolatait továbbá Daniele Scalia, az olaszországi Machiavelli Intézet alapítója és elnöke. Ezúton szeretném kérni a beszélgetés résztvevőit, hogy csatlakozzanak hozzám a színpadon, hogy közösen elmélkedhessünk a migráció jelentőségéről és a határvédelem fontosságáról. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you that you are true friends of Hungary and true friends of border protection. May I ask you the questions because we are short of time? What are the most important aspects of EU migration policy today? What should be changed in the EU's approach in order to create a system that guarantees the security of the member states and their citizens? And please tell us, what is the situation in the United States of America? May we start with Chris?
The situation in the United States is very grave. We have uncontrolled border. We have a border that essentially the operational control of it has been turned over to Mexican cartels. Nothing crosses the U.S. southern border without either money or permission of, or money being paid to, or permission granted by Mexican cartels. And that goes to everything, whether it's drugs, money, people, weapons, whatever it is, the Mexican cartels control our southern border. The Biden administration has abandoned any real control. Our law enforcement has been relegated to handling administrative asylum applications. And in the last, well, since the Biden administration took office, we have something like 6 million people who have crossed our border. And it's not just a question of uncontrolled migration. We have no idea who is in our country, none. And the other factor of this, which doesn't get discussed as much, but it's entirely linked with the migration issue, is the incredible drug trafficking that goes across our border. And so to give you perspective on this, the #1 killer of Americans aged 18 to 45 is fentanyl. Here's a parallel. A 737 aircraft loaded with people. The crashing one of those, one a day, every day, is the death toll to Americans from fentanyl overdoses, all of which are associated with or in some way connected with the Mexican cartel control of our southern border. So it's not just a migration problem, which has impacts on healthcare, school, housing, all those sort of social issues, but there's a very grave criminal crisis attached with our uncontrolled border, and it is destroying, fundamentally eroding the quality of life in our country and increasing not just social questions and issues, but criminal as well.
Daniele?
Well, in 1985, the Schengen Agreement, which in popular understanding is the abolishment of the internal borders of Europe, actually devoted more articles to the regulations of the external borders. Article 3 stated that the member states should have introduced punishment for the illegal crossing, the unauthorized crossing of borders. Today, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union merely states that checks on persons and an efficient monitoring of the crossing should be provided. While it is way more worthy and more imperative when it comes to asylum. In that case, it provides that you must guarantee an adequate status for asylum seekers. You must comply with the principle of non-refoulement. You must comply with the Geneva Convention, which was written having in mind the political persecuted by fascism, Nazism, communism, but it is totally unfit for an age in which migration flows are so large that in the past they would have been described as great migration of people, such as the barbaric invasion, for example. Luckily, the EU treaty still provides for combating the illegal immigration, the human trafficking, but in order to achieve that, in order to do that, you have to go back to the fundamentals, to review them, to change them, and those fundamentals are the national, international, European laws that, skewed as they are, biased as they are towards the rights of migrants rather than the rights of nations, are tying the hands to those who actually want to defend our borders.
Thank you so much. Mr. Masson?
Well, you know, I'm a lawyer for my profession, but I think in Europe we do not face legal problems, but a lack of political will. So there's not really a major need to change the directives of the EU concerning asylum or concerning illegal migration. I think we could do a lot to stop the illegal migration and the abuse of the right of asylum in the European Union. I think our major problem is that the politicians, the majority of the politicians are green or left-wingers. They want illegal migration to Europe. They want it, and they don't stop it. And the Greece and Italian border police could do a lot of more to stop the illegal migration, but they're not allowed to do it. The same with Frontex, the European Border Control Commission. It's not really a police, but a commission. They could do more, but I think the European left-wingers in Brussels, in the European Commission, the civil servants as well as the politicians, stop them to do it. So from my point of view, the major problem is the huge amount of illegal migration to Europe, which could be stopped every day if we have the political will to do it. Within 1 year, the number of illegal migrants to Germany have doubled. So I question often, why do we allow the illegal migration? Why do the politicians want the illegal migrations to Germany and Europe? And my answer is they want to destabilize Germany as well as the European Union.
Thank you so much. Because of lack of time, I would ask you 2 questions, and feel free to answer one or both. So first, in Europe, that's a very important issue. Mandatory migrant resettlement in the name of solidarity has led to serious political debates and has triggered a series of attacks against Hungary in the recent years. It's an issue now of the agenda, or is there still political will in Brussels to mandatory allocate illegal migrants among member states? And secondly, my question would be, what was different under the Republicans at the Trump administration 3 or 4 years ago, maybe?
Let me jump in for the second part of the question. So Trump had a very strong enforcement strategy that was pro-law enforcement, that was compassionate in the sense that rather than having people just be quickly, in a very summary way, processed and then released into the United States, that he wanted to have a deliberate asylum application process carried out before they entered the United States. And so there was a Remain in Mexico policy that was coordinated with the Mexican government that permitted an orderly way for people to make an asylum application and then to enter the United States. The Biden administration has abandoned and reversed all of the Trump initiatives. So now we're in a position where thousands of people, literally thousands of people a day, I think the last report from our Border Patrol was that there was 7,700 apprehensions made in one day, and realized they're only apprehending about 1/3 of the people that actually cross. So there's this enormous influx of people. The border is essentially uncontrolled, and there's a grave risk to the United States for what's happening in that regard. I have great compassion for Hungary's approach when it comes to enforcement operations and activities with regard to the European Union and their policies. And I applaud Hungary for standing up for their sovereignty and their ability to establish what their goals and objectives are. And really, frankly, I don't think they get enough credit, because you are, in many instances, going back to 2015, Hungary was actually the southern border of what represented the Schengen Agreement, right? So once across into Hungary, or once transiting Hungary, whoever came here was free to go anywhere in Europe. And so that was a unique challenge, right, that Hungary stepped up to and enforced its own sovereignty. So my congratulations to Hungary, and my grave worry for what the United States faces, particularly in the coming weeks.
Some days ago, the European Parliament voted on a proposal for regulation on migrant and asylum, immigration and asylum management. The Commission proposed the establishment of a solidarity mechanism. The European Parliament amended the text in order to make it binding. On another regulations addressing situation of crisis, the Parliament amended the Commission text in order to make the relocations mandatory. Now, Italy has long been one of the main proponents of mandatory relocations. This stance is changing with the current government. As a Machiavelli Center, we are also advocating for its final demise because we believe that relocations are not only unfair to those countries who have to suffer them, but it is also a trap for those countries that are supposed to benefit from them, as Italy. Currently, most of the migrants that come to Italy just want to move to other European countries with more welfare, more opportunities. If Italy is to formally become a gateway in order to settle to Germany, France, Sweden, or why not also Poland or Hungary with their above average GDP growth, this would be a major pulling factor. So I think that a reasonable strategy for Italy, it would be to propose a common, effective, and strict control on the common borders of the European Union, and also a comprehensive and restrictive review of those regulations.
Herr
I'm really in favor of European solidarity, but I'm strongly against relocation of refugees, asylum seekers, or illegals within the European Union. We have regulations about responsibility of countries within the European Union, and I think these regulations with the stipulations are sufficient. We have the regulations of the Dublin contract, which means a country is responsible for a refugee or asylum seeker, which is the first country of landing or of arriving. So all the countries with common borders or countries with external borders are normally responsible. So if we have a relocation program within the EU, this would mean that the countries with external borders there's no need for their homework. There's no need for a strong border control because they can send it to the other countries because of the relocation program. So from my point of view, it is crucial to have strong external borders. And if we have strong external borders, there is no need for a relocation program.
Thank you so much. I take a look at the clock and I would suggest to make a last round of questions. I would start now, to be fair, with Mr. Masson and then end with Will. So basically, what do you think is migration? What will be the role of migration in the upcoming elections in 2024 in the United States of America and in the European Union?
I think from the point of the majority of politicians, especially of the left-wingers, they don't want to speak about migration. They don't want to speak about problems. So migration is not a problem for them. So from my point of view, they don't mention migration. I make the same experience during my election campaign 2 years ago. The left-wingers, the Greens, they don't want to speak about migration. It's not a problem. So if we want to rise up the problem, migration, we have to speak about it. Yeah, I think it's crucial to speak about a problem. If you see a problem, speak about the problem.
In the United States, the concern, likewise, that the left would rather ignore, the Biden administration would rather ignore the problem that we face on our border, but it cannot be ignored. It is so severe. It is such a burden, increasingly not just on border states, Texas and Arizona and such, but now as these tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of people have moved further north into the country, We say that the border isn't in the southwest of the United States, the border is in New York City or Ohio or other northern locations, to the point now where the very liberal mayor of New York City, Mr. Adams, is verbally, vocally, very emphatically criticizing the Biden administration because he is now bearing the costs of housing, education, healthcare, all the social issues connected with this enormous flood of migration. So they'd like to ignore it, they can't. In a more cynical world, some people would say that some Democrats would view every illegal alien as another Democratic voter. That then gets criticized as being racist and all sorts of other tropes. But it is a problem that really defines the current American political experience.
Well, I am quite confident that in 2024 the Italian people will elect a majority of members of the European Parliament that are in favor of restrictive overhaul of migration policies and management, especially if the current government will be able to deliver on this issue. In 2018, Matteo Salvini kept his promises and he managed to almost completely curb illegal immigration in Italy. He was rewarded with a huge victory in the 2019 European elections. If Giorgia Meloni will be able to do the same this year, she will win in a landslide in 2024.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I honestly believe that with our German, Italian, and American friends by our side, it's much more easy for us Hungarians to protect our borders, to fight against illegal migration, and protect our border fence. So thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Chris Farrell. Thank you so much, Hans-Georg Maassen. And thank you so much, Daniele Scaira. Big applause for them.